A 2-year-old girl named Christiana Akambi has been in the hands of armed kidnappers for more than 30 days. She was seized from her nursery school in Oriire, Oyo State on May 15th. She is not yet old enough to understand what is happening to her. While everyone is talking about VDM's confrontation with thugs at the Ibadan protest, nobody is asking the question that the kidnappers themselves forced into the open. What exactly are these people demanding? And why is the Nigerian government refusing to say it publicly? Because the answer to that question changes what this story is about. It is no longer just about kidnapping. It is no longer just about insecurity in the Southwest. When you hear what the abductors have formally demanded as a condition for releasing those children and teachers, you will understand why armed men were sent to stop a protest that was simply asking the government to act. Stay with me. Before we go further, if you're new here, this channel exists for one reason: to give Southwest Nigeria the political analysis mainstream media want. Hit subscribe and stay with me. This gets deeper. On Tuesday, June 16, 2026, social media activist and influencer Martins Vincent Otse, known as VeryDarkMan or VDM, led a large-scale protest march through the streets of Ibadan, the Oyo State capital. The protest was organized by the Ratel movement, the activist group VDM leads, and was joined by thousands of Ibadan residents. The crowd marched to the Oyo State Government House, where they addressed Governor Seyi Makinde directly, demanding urgent government action to rescue the school children and teachers still in captivity. During the march, the protest was confronted by individuals who have been widely described by eyewitnesses, protesters, and VDM himself as armed thugs. According to VDM's own account posted on social media, the intruders, quote, shot at us, they threw bottles and stones, end quote. The protesters, rather than dispersing, ran toward the thugs. VDM held his ground. An eyewitness described the scene as, quote, what I've never witnessed in my life, I will tell my children and grandchildren, end quote. After the confrontation, VDM met with Governor Makinde at the government house. The governor addressed the crowd. He confirmed he felt the protesters' pain. He also said something that will become important in Section 3 of this analysis.
The immediate trigger was the Oriire school abduction, which occurred on May 15, 2026, exactly 1 month before this protest. But the specific timing of VDM's Ibadan mobilization on June 16th also followed a verified misinformation crisis. A Facebook post widely attributed to Tope Faswa, Special Advisor to President Tinubu on Economic Affairs, falsely claimed that all abducted children and teachers had been rescued in a joint security operation. The Oyo State Police Command immediately and publicly denied this claim, calling it unfounded, untrue, and false. That false rescue claim and its viral spread appears to have been the immediate catalyst for VDM's decision to bring the protest to Ibadan. On May 15, 2026, a large group of heavily armed men on motorcycles simultaneously raided 3 schools in communities near Ogbomoso in Oriire local government area: Baptist Nursery and Primary School in Yawota, Community Grammar School in Ahoro Esinele, and LA Primary School in Ahoro Esinele. The attackers arrived during school hours, fired shots, and seized children and teachers without resistance. Official victim counts varied in the days following. The senator representing Oyo North stated 49 persons were taken. The Christian Association of Nigeria Oyo State chapter confirmed 46, mostly children aged 2 to 16. Governor Makinde's official breakdown listed 18 pupils and 7 teachers from Baptist Primary, and 7 students and 7 teachers from Community Grammar School, a total of 39 pupils and 14 teachers. Among the victims, Christiana Akambi, a 2-year-old, seized alongside her teacher. On May 17th, 2 days after the abduction, the kidnappers released a video showing the beheading of mathematics teacher Michael Oyedokun. A second teacher was also reported killed in captivity. As of June 16th, the day of the Ibadan protest, the remaining victims had been held for 32 days with no rescue. The protest is not the origin of this story. It is the pressure release valve after a month of institutional failure. The Nigeria Union of Teachers declared an indefinite strike effective June 1st, withdrawing labor nationwide in protest at the government's inability to secure the release of their colleagues. A false rescue announcement, officially denied by police, circulated virally and was attributed to a presidential aide. And the abductors' demands, which we will address later in this video, had escalated in ways the government has not publicly acknowledged. VDM's Ibadan protest is the moment when public anger crossed from online expression into physical civic action, and someone sent thugs to stop it.
Most viewers will assume the thugs were random street criminals. Stop and reframe. Eyewitnesses, Protesting residents and viral social media commentary from Ibadan specifically identify these individuals as organized political muscle, with at least one commentator publicly naming them as being connected to non-APC political infrastructure. VDM himself wrote on his social media, "To the people that sent the thugs, ask them how far." The word sent is not incidental. It implies direction. It implies a sender. That distinction between spontaneous street violence and directed political intimidation is what changes this story from a crime report into a political story. Now, you know what happened at the protest, but understanding why thugs could show up and why they believed they could act with impunity requires understanding the institutional structure that governs security in Oyo State. And when you hear what Governor Makinde said to VDM on camera, you will understand something about Nigerian federalism that most political science textbooks do not explain this clearly. Here is the structural problem that Governor Makinde exposed on camera at the government house. Under Nigeria's constitutional arrangement, the police force is a federal institution. The Commissioner of Police deployed in Oyo State takes operational instructions from the Inspector General of Police, who reports to the President of the Federal Republic. A state governor cannot lawfully direct the CP to deploy officers to a specific location for a security operation without that instruction being routed through and approved by Abuja. Makinde said it plainly to VDM and the crowd. The state governor is not in charge of security agencies. If I say go somewhere, the Commissioner of Police will have to take instructions from the Inspector General of Police. That statement is not a political deflection. It is a precise constitutional description of why 46 people have remained in captivity for over a month in a state whose governor has repeatedly said he wants them rescued. This is the structural failure at the center of the Southwest security crisis, not individual incompetence, but a federal architecture that concentrates security command at the center while distributing the political fallout to the states.
Makinde's Executive Order of May 20, 2026, regularizing vigilante and community security groups, represents the outer boundary of what a state governor can do unilaterally. He can organize and regulate non-state actors. He cannot command the army. He cannot order the police. He can appeal to Abuja. And when Abuja is politically motivated to be slow, the governor has no enforcement mechanism. By early June, surveillance helicopters had narrowed down the forest location of the hostages. Security sources told The Punch that authorities were cautious about a direct assault because of the large number of young children among the hostages. The terrain, dense forest in the Oriire area, complicates any ground operation. These are real operational constraints, but they sit within a political context of federal-state command fragmentation that compounds every tactical challenge. The legality of the June 16th thug confrontation has not been formally investigated at the time of this production. No arrests have been reported. No state or federal security agency has issued a public statement identifying, charging, or pursuing the individuals who shot at and threw objects at peaceful protesters. That absence, the silence of law enforcement following an attack on a civic demonstration, is itself an institutional data point. The protest had one demand: rescue the children. That demand is not inherently partisan. It is a humanitarian claim that no political actor can openly oppose. So who would benefit from disrupting it? The answer requires identifying who is most politically damaged by a sustained, high-profile, nationally visible protest in Ibadan, demanding that the federal and state government act on Southwest insecurity. The federal government, specifically the Tinubu presidency, carries the primary constitutional accountability for security agency deployment. Every day the children remain in captivity is a day the presidency's security management record is on trial. A protest that stays peaceful and visible keeps that accountability alive. A protest that is disrupted, dispersed, or discredited removes that pressure. VDM's Ratel movement has also been critical of President Tinubu on multiple security issues in recent weeks, including the viral Kwara Church attack. VDM is not a neutral civic actor in the eyes of APC political infrastructure. He is a documented critic of the federal government. Disrupting his protest in Ibadan has a political logic that extends beyond the Oriire kidnapping.
VDM's language, "to the people that sent the thugs," assets direction. At least one viral social media commentator publicly identified the thugs as APC thugs, Tinubu ground or street soldiers, citing a pattern dating to Tinubu's introduction of the Agbero system on Lagos roads from 1999 and its alleged replication across Southwest states. These are public social media claims, not court-established facts, but the pattern they reference is documented. The March 7, 2026 attacks in Ibadan, where suspected political thugs attacked the residence of former Oyo Deputy Governor Hazim Gubalarumi and disrupted PDP faction congresses across multiple LGAs, injuring at least 10 people and destroying more than 25 vehicles. That incident followed a similar pattern of organized political violence in Oyo State. What we can say factually is this: the individuals who confronted the June 16 protest were not random criminals. Eyewitness accounts describe coordinated deployment, weapons including firearms and thrown projectiles, and retreat behavior consistent with organized actors rather than opportunistic mob violence. Whether those actors were deployed by a political figure, a faction, or an interest group whose identity has not been publicly established, that is the investigative question that remains open. Governor Makinde's handling of this crisis is being watched carefully across the southwest political spectrum. His admission of limited security command authority was honest, but honesty in a crisis that has claimed children's lives and teachers' lives creates its own political vulnerability. If the children are not released before the or soon August governorship election, the narrative of southwest state governments being powerless to protect their own populations will follow the PDP into that campaign. VDM's movement, meanwhile, is being tested for durability. Social media commentary on June 16 included both admiration, "I'm beginning to see his movement as becoming too strong," and concern that his strength will provoke a more organized institutional response. The thugs who showed up on June 16 may be a warning of what a more serious suppression effort looks like. The Oriire kidnapping and the response to it are already shaping the political landscape heading toward 2027. Atiku Abubakar's camp issued a statement calling the Tinubu government's response the same tired ritual. The Labour Party and opposition forces are positioning the security failure as a referendum on federal governance. In the southwest specifically, the expansion of bandit-style kidnapping into Oyo, a state considered relatively secure compared to the northwest, is disrupting the APC's core electoral narrative that under Tinubu, the southwest is better governed and better protected. VDM's language, "to the people that sent the thugs," assets direction. At least one viral social media commentator publicly identified the thugs as APC thugs, Tinubu ground or street soldiers, citing a pattern dating to Tinubu's introduction of the Agbero system on Lagos roads from 1999 and its alleged replication across southwest states. These are public social media claims, not court-established facts, but the pattern they reference is documented. The March 7, 2026 attacks in Ibadan, where suspected political thugs attacked the residence of former Oyo Deputy Governor Hazim Gubalarumi and disrupted PDP faction congresses across multiple LGAs, injuring at least 10 people and destroying more than 25 vehicles. That incident followed a similar pattern of organized political violence in Oyo State. What we can say factually is this: the individuals who confronted the June 16 protest were not random criminals. Eyewitness accounts describe coordinated deployment, weapons including firearms and thrown projectiles, and retreat behavior consistent with organized actors rather than opportunistic mob violence. Whether those actors were deployed by a political figure, a faction, or an interest group whose identity has not been publicly established, that is the investigative question that remains open. Governor Makinde's handling of this crisis is being watched carefully across the southwest political spectrum. His admission of limited security command authority was honest, but honesty in a crisis that has claimed children's lives and teachers' lives creates its own political vulnerability. If the children are not released before the or soon August governorship election, the narrative of southwest state governments being powerless to protect their own populations will follow the PDP into that campaign. VDM's movement, meanwhile, is being tested for durability. Social media commentary on June 16 included both admiration, "I'm beginning to see his movement as becoming too strong," and concern that his strength will provoke a more organized institutional response. The thugs who showed up on June 16 may be a warning of what a more serious suppression effort looks like. The Oriire kidnapping and the response to it are already shaping the political landscape heading toward 2027. Atiku Abubakar's camp issued a statement calling the Tinubu government's response the same tired ritual. The Labour Party and opposition forces are positioning the security failure as a referendum on federal governance. In the southwest specifically, the expansion of bandit-style kidnapping into Oyo, a state considered relatively secure compared to the northwest, is disrupting the APC's core electoral narrative that under Tinubu, the southwest is better governed and better protected.
The Oriire abduction is not the first security incident in Oyo State in 2026. In January, 5 National Park Service forest guards were killed in Oloka village. In March, 4 cocoa farmers were abducted near the Cocoa Research Institute in Idi-Ayunre, Ibadan. In April, travelers were abducted along the Ibadan-Ijebu Expressway, with 1 killed. The June 16 protest is the accumulation of months of escalating insecurity, finding its public voice, not a response to a single incident in isolation. The regional implication is structural. The armed groups operating in Oyo State are no longer operating at the margins of the southwest. They are operating near Ibadan, Nigeria's 3rd largest city. That is a geographic expansion that changes the political calculation for every southwest governor, every southwest politician, and every southwest voter. Now, if what I just told you surprises you, drop a comment below. I want to know what you think before we get to the part that changes everything. We posed this question at the beginning. What exactly have the kidnappers demanded, and why is the government not saying it publicly? By early June 2026, verified reporting from leadership and All Africa documented that the abductors had escalated beyond a ransom demand. Their conditions for releasing the hostages included payment of 1 billion naira, approximately US $1.2 million, into a Republic of Benin bank account, delivery of 2 Hilux vehicles, release of suspected associates held in Oyo State, release of 2 named Ansaru commanders, Mahmoud Mohamed Usman and his deputy Mahmoud Al-Nigeri, held in federal custody, and implementation of Sharia law in Oyo State. The Oyo State House of Assembly publicly rejected any negotiation with the abductors, but the federal government has not publicly confirmed or denied the existence or content of these demands. That silence is itself a political position, and the Sharia demand, directed at a predominantly Yoruba, multi-faith state that has no constitutional basis for Sharia criminal law, is not a negotiating tactic. It is a declaration of ideological intent that reframes what organization is behind this abduction and what their long-term objective is.
Security sources who spoke to The Punch identified the group as linked to Ansaru, a jihadist organization with documented roots in northern Nigeria that has historically operated through forest-based hideouts. A presidency source additionally told The Punch that the Oyo attack was coordinated with a simultaneous school abduction in Borno State designed to maximize bargaining pressure on the government. If accurate, this is not a kidnap for ransom operation. It is a coordinated ideological offensive with national strategic dimensions. Nigeria's defense expenditure rose 55% to $2.1 billion in 2025. In the same year, 3,141 kidnappings were recorded in 1,274 incidents nationally, and violent conflicts claimed 4,654 lives. The kidnap for ransom economy generated at least 2.57 billion naira between July 2024 and June 2025. These are figures from the Alliance for Economic Research and Ethics. The Oyo abduction is not an outlier. It is the Southwest's entry into a national pattern that the government has failed to break despite a significant increase in security spending. 3 interconnected economic consequences are already visible. First, the NUT indefinite strike has disrupted public education across Oyo State, affecting hundreds of thousands of students whose parents are workers and consumers in the state economy. Second, agricultural communities near the abduction sites, the Oriire area is cocoa and food crop farming territory, are now operating under threat conditions that reduce productivity and increase displacement. Third, road and commercial transit along the Ibadan-Ijebu Expressway and the Ibadan-Ogbomoso corridor has been disrupted by the pattern of armed attacks since January, with direct cost to trade and logistics. Governor Makinde's executive order on vigilante regularization is a practical attempt to compensate for the gap in State Security Command Authority, but it also reveals the limits of that compensation. Community vigilantes can provide local intelligence and response capability, but they cannot confront armed Ansari-linked operatives in dense forest terrain. The constitutional case for state police, which has been debated in the National Assembly for years, has never been more practically illustrated than by a Southwest governor standing in front of thousands of protesters, publicly admitting he cannot order the Commissioner of Police to move.
The U.S. Embassy in Abuja has previously spoken on Nigerian security crisis with Southwest dimensions. The June 16th protest and the thug confrontation, which was documented on video and circulated internationally within hours, will be on the diplomatic radar. More significantly, the confirmed or suspected Ansaru involvement in the Oriire abduction places this within the framework of US and UK counter-terrorism cooperation frameworks with Nigeria. Both governments have previously designated Ansaru as a terror organization. Their intelligence sharing obligations on Ansaru-linked activity are therefore active, regardless of what Nigeria's federal government says publicly. The false rescue announcement, attributed to a presidential aide and immediately denied by state police, was fact-checked by Africa Check and widely reported internationally. It damaged Nigeria's credibility in how the government is managing the crisis narrative at precisely the moment when international attention to the abduction was at its highest. Yoruba communities in the United Kingdom, concentrated in London, Birmingham, and Leicester, and in the United States, in Houston, Atlanta, Washington, D.C., and New York, have a direct relationship with the Southwest educational infrastructure. Diaspora remittances fund school fees, school construction, and community development projects across Oyo, Osun, Ogun, and Ekiti states. Many diaspora families have children enrolled in schools in the same rural and peri-urban communities where the Oriire abduction occurred. A 2-year-old girl seized from a nursery school is not an abstraction for Yoruba diaspora parents. It is a threat assessment. The diaspora community is now making decisions about whether to send their children on summer visits to Southwest Nigeria, whether to continue funding school development projects in communities that have become active kidnapping zones, and whether the Southwest's reputation as Nigeria's stable investment corridor is still valid. That last question has direct economic consequences beyond sentiment. Diaspora investment in Southwest Nigeria, in real estate, small and medium enterprise funding, and educational infrastructure is a significant component of Oyo and Osun state economic activity. If diaspora confidence declines because the state cannot protect children in schools, the economic fallout arrives before the next election cycle.
The Oriire abduction fits a documented global pattern. The expansion of jihadist-affiliated or ideologically motivated kidnapping from areas of sustained conflict into previously stable regions, using schools as targets precisely because they maximize public pressure and media coverage. From Chibok in 2014 to the 2021-2024 wave in the Northwest to Oyo in 2026, the pattern follows an established playbook. What makes the Oyo case structurally significant globally is the confirmed or suspected coordination with a simultaneous Borno state abduction, suggesting command and control sophistication that goes beyond opportunistic banditry. The intellectually honest version of the government's defense is this: launching a direct military assault on a forest hideout where armed kidnappers are holding dozens of young children, some as young as 2 years old, is not a simple or morally uncomplicated decision. A rescue operation that results in the death of children in the crossfire would be a catastrophe worse than continued captivity. The cautious approach, surveillance, negotiation attempts, intelligence gathering, is not necessarily evidence of incompetence or indifference. It may be the least bad option available given the operational terrain and the hostage demographic. The governor's admission that he lacks direct police command authority is also factually accurate. Blaming Makinde personally for the failure to rescue the children misattributes the structural problem as an individual failure. The constitutional architecture of Nigerian security is the problem, not any specific governor's personal commitment to the outcome.
Misconceptions circulating in public discourse. The children have been rescued. This was a viral claim, officially and explicitly denied by the Oyo State Police Command. It was false as of June 16, 2026. Any content presenting the rescue as confirmed is misinformation. This is purely a northern problem that has come south. The armed groups operating in Oyo State are drawing on networks that have operated across the country for years. The leadership editorial data shows 2,416 students abducted across 13 states since 2014. The Southwest's relative insulation from this pattern ended with the Oriire attack, but framing it as northern violence invading the South obscures the national scope of the failure. VDM's protest was a political opposition event. The demand, rescue the children, has no party affiliation. Makinde, a PDP governor, met with VDM respectfully. The protest drew criticism of both state and federal governments. The attempt to frame the protest as anti-government agitation is itself a political move, and sending thugs to disrupt it confirms that someone found it politically threatening. The Southwest's strategic interest in this situation is not primarily about VDM or about party politics. It is about whether the region can maintain its claim to being the most stable, most investable, most institutionally developed zone in Nigeria, a claim that has been the foundation of Southwest political bargaining power for 3 decades. That claim now has a challenge it has not faced before: a documented and Saru-linked kidnapping operating 60 kilometers from Ibadan, a governor publicly admitting he cannot command his own police, armed thugs shooting at citizens demanding the rescue of children, and 46 hostages, including a 2-year-old who have been in captivity for over a month. The Southwest's strategic interest requires specifically a constitutional amendment or executive framework that gives state governors real-time command authority over security agencies in their states, or the establishment of a Southwest regional security architecture with genuine operational capacity. Amotekun was a beginning. It is not sufficient. VDM's protest made that visible in a way that no policy paper has managed. That is its political value, and that is why someone wanted it stopped.
3 most likely next moves. 1. Federal security escalation. Expected, pressure-driven. The public visibility of the June 16 Ibadan protest and the viral evidence of thugs attacking peaceful demonstrators demanding the rescue of children increases the political cost of federal inaction. Expect a visible federal security gesture within the next 72 to 96 hours. A presidency statement, an IG of police visit to Oyo, or a defense headquarters press conference. Whether this gesture is accompanied by substantive operational change is the question to watch. 2. Investigation demand for the thug confrontation. Likely, civic pressure.
civil society organizations, the NBA, Nigerian Bar Association, and potentially the National Human Rights Commission will be under pressure to call for investigation of who deployed armed men to disrupt a peaceful civic protest. Whether that call produces any institutional response will test the independence of Oyo State's security apparatus. 3. Escalation of VDM's campaign. Certain. VDM has not indicated any intention to stand down. Given the national social media response to June 16, which was overwhelmingly supportive of the protesters, the Ratel movement's next mobilization will likely be larger, more coordinated, and potentially multi-city. Watch for whether VDM extends the protest campaign to Abuja, which would shift the political target from the state government to the federal presidency directly. Signals to watch. Whether the Oyo State Police Command makes any arrest in connection with the Tug attack on the June 16 protest. Whether the federal government publicly acknowledges the content of the kidnappers' demands, particularly the Ansaro Kondaga release and Sharia law conditions. Whether the NUT extends, modifies, or ends its indefinite strike in response to any government action. Whether Makinde takes any new executive action on state security infrastructure beyond the May 20 executive order. Whether the remaining hostages are released before the Osun-August governorship election, and what political credit is claimed for any release. Whether VDM expands the protest campaign beyond Oyo State.
The long-term significance of June 16 is not the protest itself. It is what the protest revealed about the limits of civic pressure on a security system that is structurally insulated from state-level accountability. VDM's movement runs toward power rather than away from it. The confrontation with the thugs, the direct meeting with Makinde, the public forcing a governor to admit his constitutional limitations on camera, these are politically significant moments in the evolution of Nigerian civic activism. For the Southwest specifically, June 16 is the moment when the region's security crisis became undeniably political. The question now is whether that politicization produces structural reform, state police, regional security architecture, federal accountability mechanisms, or whether it produces only louder voices and more cycles of protest followed by institutional silence. That answer will not come from VDM. It will come from the National Assembly, from the presidency, and from whether the Southwest's governors choose to use this moment as a mandate for constitutional change. We opened with a 2-year-old girl named Christiana Akambi, still in captivity over 30 days after being seized from her nursery school. That fact has not changed while we have been talking. What has changed is our understanding of why. Not because the government does not care, not because the army cannot find the hostages, but because the constitutional structure of Nigerian federalism places the command authority for rescuing children in Oyo State in the hands of officials who are accountable to Abuja, not to the parents of Oriire. And because someone somewhere found it politically useful for a protest demanding those children's return to be met with gunfire and thrown bottles rather than with institutional urgency. The Southwest's interest in this moment is not partisan, it is structural. Every Yoruba governor, every Yoruba community, every Yoruba diaspora parent who has invested in Southwest Nigeria's future needs to understand that the question of state police and regional security command is no longer an academic debate. It is the reason a 2-year-old spent a month in the forest, and it is the reason thugs felt confident enough to shoot at people who were simply asking for her back. Drop your responses in the comments below. I want to know, do you think VDM's movement has the institutional power to force change, or is this a cycle that ends with a rescue photo op and no structural reform? Because that distinction matters more than anything else in this conversation. If this analysis gave you clarity, share it with one person who needs to understand what's really happening. Like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.